2021, classified as a first felony offender, offense, armed robbery, 4 counts, and first-degree robbery. Sentencing date, August 8th, 1997, and April 6th, 1998. Sentenced to a total of 57 years. Parole date, August 1st, 2021. Good time, August 30th, 2044. Full term, March 1st, 2054. Is this information correct, sir?
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. Ms. Granata.
Good morning, Mr. Jones.
Good morning.
How are you?
I'm doing well. How are you?
I'm good. Thanks for asking. Look, your case has been assigned to me, so I'll start asking you some questions.
Yes,
And
ma'am.
I think you appeared before the Pardon Board for a clemency hearing in 2016. And at that time, the board voted favorably to
Yes, ma'am.
recommend clemency for you. And the recommendation was parole eligibility after having served 35 years. But that recommendation was denied by the governor. But here we are today because of Act 122.
Yes, ma'am.
So you are classified as a first offender, and these two in two different jurisdictions. The armed robbery was in East Baton Rouge, and I believe the first degree robbery was that in East Feliciana.
East Feliciana Parish, that is correct.
And did that all happen around the same time?
Yes, ma'am, it did. All in 1997.
Okay. And as I read your record, you had a serious cocaine addiction. Is
Yes,
that
ma'am.
right?
Yes, ma'am.
So what have you done to address that issue over the past, how have you been in jail, about 24 years?
24 years, almost. In March, it'll be 25.
And then you're 50?
I am 50, yes, ma'am.
Half your life, huh?
Half my life. Yes, ma'am.
So what have you done over the past 25 years to work on that cocaine addiction?
Well, I've took the substance abuse classes they have in prison, and I've took other classes as well. But it's just staying focused and trying to do the right thing all the time. I never think about drugs or nothing like that anymore. But I think I've fully got rid of that habit, and I'm ready to move forward.
Would you say it's a habit or an addiction?
I think it was more of a habit than an addiction.
Okay. What classes did you say you took to work on that?
I did the substance abuse, the classes that they have in prison. I took all of them. I don't remember exactly what they were.
You don't remember the names? Do you have it? I got Living in Balance. It's the only one I got in my record.
Yeah, I took some other ones at Cottonport in 2002 or 2003. I'm not sure if it's in there in the file, but I was at a Vols in 2003. And I took whatever substance abuse class they had at a Vols at that time, I did take it.
Okay.
It should be in the file. I don't know if it's in the file or not, but I did go through those classes, man.
What'd you learn?
Well, I learned that if you really get in a bind, you need to talk to somebody. But I've never been situated with drugs anymore. And I mean, I don't get an urge for drugs. But as I've grown, I just look more at life than at not drugs anymore. I just want to be successful. That's my main goal, and that's how I live every day.
So let's talk about your conduct record. You had a hiccup in 2020 with a contraband. What was that?
I had a cigarette and a lighter. So that was the contraband. I did have a cigarette and I did have a cigarette lighter.
Do you still smoke?
No, ma'am. No, ma'am.
I say that I saw the penalty was a job change.
Yes, ma'am.
And then, but before that, it was 2012 since you had a write-up. So yes, I was wondering what happened to you.
Well, that's what it was. That's what it was.
All right. I see that what other programs do you think that you took that will help you be, you say you want to be successful. So what programs do you think that you took that's going to help you be that successful man on the outside?
I want to start with Toastmasters. I took Toastmasters. They teach you to be an effective person. They listen, communicate, just be a better person. I did the faith-based programs, and they really helped me in multiple ways of just being a respectful individual, trying more to be productive. And as you get older, usually I probably would have said like the faith-based or the educational programs. But when you get older, you go to thinking more. And a class I took a long time ago that still I really like is the CPR class. And it's just something that's good to have. You never know when you're in a position to have to actually use it. And I have been, over these 24 years, been able to use it. So the CPR, just preserving life, is another good one for me.
Good. All right. So tell us about your transition plan. I see the parole projects here, and they're going to talk to us, but you put it in your words. Tell us what your transition plan is.
Well, I actually want to do the upholstery. I have someone that was ready to hire me right now to do upholstery. I've really learned that, and I've excelled at it, and I really like it. And from my years there, it's always told to me, if you really like something, you may excel in it. And I think I will excel in upholstery. I have. It's a demand from what everybody tells me, that everybody that used to do it, they have either died and no one either took up the trade. So I really like it. I enjoy it, and I'm good at it. So I want to put all my time and energy right there. That's what I want to do.
And you're going to live, long-term plan would be to live with your brother?
I'm going to live with my brother. We both left the house. We lost our mom 6 months ago on this date, August the 11th. We lost our mom. She left us the house and everything that she had. But yeah, we plan to live together. We the last two. We also had another brother. We lost him a month after my mom. So it's just me and him and my uncle. That's the family now. And I just want to be with them and let us live each day as it is. I'm tired of what I call my uncle. He had the same thing to tell me every time. Your mom told me to wait on you. I'm tired of waiting. I'm tired. I'm ready to go be with them. So I'm trying to get to him before that happens.
All right. I don't have any other questions. Let's ask Warden Gayran if there's anything he can add.
Yes, ma'am. Good morning.
Morning.
David Jones, ever since I've been acquainted with David Jones, I don't know who he was prior to being incarcerated, but, and I don't use this word lightly, but my interaction, he's a gentle giant. He's a big fella, gentle giant, pleasant, hard worker, and the craft that he's talking about. I can attest that he definitely, he has a millionaire craft. He can upholster anything, but as his character, it's been consistent. And I mean, when all of us, and I say administration or anyone talks about, they call him Shaq, talk about David Jones, it's like a good guy, really good. I mean, you know, I won't take away from anything that has happened. I just want to say that he's been consistent with being a good guy and avoiding or extinguishing any type of disturbance around him. So that's my personal, I guess you want to say, relationship of being around David Jones since, I don't know how many years it's been. He's real quiet. He smiles, but gentle giant. I'll say it like that, man.
Yeah, great. Thank you. I appreciate it. Okay, Miss Teresa.
First, we will hear from Mr. Timothy Wilkinson, who's a friend.
Good morning, everyone. I have had the pleasure of knowing David Jones for 20 years now. We met under some unfortunate circumstances. I don't know if Judge Marabella remembers, but he sentenced me for first-degree robbery in 1999, and I met David Jones around that time. And when I met him, I was really surprised to see that he was in prison, and he kind of felt likewise. And so we became friends. And over the years, we've kept in touch. Of course, I'm free now, but David he's a rarity for those charges. And we talked about his previous habits with dealing with drugs, and he is one of those people who will help anybody who he can. He clearly stays out of trouble. He does have a support system out here. I live in Baton Rouge, and he already knows that we're willing to circle around him and make sure he has everything that he needs physically to survive. We know that problems occur. We know that stumbling blocks will occur, and he's aware of that. But these types of situations in his life, I firmly believe will never occur again. Not because those stumbling blocks won't present themselves, but because he now knows how to handle them. He knows how to lean on others when he needs support. And I'm here for him 100%. And of course, Andrew Hunley Parole Project is here. That's a great thing, because Andrew and his staff do a great job with helping people transition. So I thank y'all for hearing his case today, and I thank him for making the changes in his life. And we look forward and hope that you all will be willing to grant his parole.
Thank you. Now we will hear from Mr. Andrew Hunley from Louisiana Parole Project.
Well, I believe I'm the only ex-con here that Judge Marabella didn't sentence, but but I too was incarcerated with David, and like Tim, I can speak to David's character. I never called him David; he was always Shaq to me. But that aside, Parole Project stands prepared to provide reentry support to David if this board would grant him release. He, just being honest, he is the big brother type of person who's in prison, and I know that if he's given a second chance, he's going to be a big brother to other people in the community. Who need his mentorship. Obviously, he has to get himself straight first before he can really be a mentor. But our Parole Project stands ready to guide him on that path, as we have done with many other people like him who have served long prison sentences. We commit to provide him long-term support and programming, and to help him and his family with the transition back to society. I know this board's aware of what we offer. I'll stand ready to offer any comments or answer any questions you may have about his reentry program. Thank you.
Ms. Renassa, that is all of our speakers.
Yeah, I think Judge Mirabella, do you have a comment or a question?
I did have a couple of questions. Thank you, Madam Chairman. I guess after the fact, Mr. Wilkinson, I'm glad to see you there. I'm glad to see that you're doing well. So congratulations to you.
Thank you.
Mr. Jones, I want to talk to you very briefly about your drug issue. Okay.
Yes, sir.
You indicated that you had a bad cocaine addiction and you think it was just a habit. Let's kind of talk about that just for a few seconds. How long did you do cocaine?
Probably about 1 year, 6 months to a year.
How often were you doing it?
Every week. Probably
And why-
on the weekends, just the weekend every week. Just on the weekends. I didn't do it Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, just on the weekends, Friday, Saturday.
Why would you do it on the weekends? What prompted you to do it? What are your triggers? You're taking a lot of substance abuse classes.
Partying mostly. Just hanging with the wrong crowds basically, and partying ends to other things, and eventually to the drugs.
Is AA important to you? Meetings important to you? You talked about support a little bit. Are those meetings important to you?
these program meetings.
AA meetings, yes, that y'all call them classes, but they're actually meetings on the outside that you go to on a fairly regular basis. Is
Yeah,
that
they're
something?
important. Yeah, that's something that's important to me, and that's something that I'll tend to get into if I can. I mean, I don't have a problem with it, but yeah, I want it.
Okay. One thing I guess I would like to mention, I don't think it's just a habit. I think it is an addiction. And I think
Okay.
that you need to recognize that. And I understand where you are right now, and you've done extremely well. But I'm just concerned about when you get out. We want you to stay out when you get out. So I'm satisfied with your comments. So thank you. Thank you, Madam Chairman.
Thank you,
All
Mr.
right.
Marabella. Mr. Jones, is there a statement you'd like to make before we turn it over to Ms. Ray?
Sure. I want to first say that I did some things in my past that was really bad. The armed robbery is bad. The first degree robbery is bad. The way those situations went down, they were bad. And in one of those instances, I believe there was a kid involved, and in the incident when the kid was involved, I didn't see the kid. He came in from behind me, so I never saw him, and he just popped up, and everything was already transpired. It wasn't an armed robbery; it was a first-degree robbery. I was asking someone for it, and when I just turn around, the kid pops up out of nowhere. But that was that instant, and for everybody that was involved in whatever I did, I want them to know that I have sympathy for them and I sympathize with them as well. But as I move forward, those things will always be with me. I can't take them back, but I can better myself going forward. Those are my intentions fully, is to be a better person going forward and live a decent, successful life. That's what I want. I want to live life and be successful at it. And if I'm granted on this board today, especially Mr. Marabella, I don't want you to fall asleep at night and just feel like that. I don't want you to wonder if you turn somebody loose that'll come back. I want you to know for sure in your heart that this guy is not coming back to prison and that I can sleep tonight. And I want you to know that you will be able to sleep at night. If you lose me, it's over with. I'm done. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you. Ms. Ray, would you wrap it up for us?
Yes. Good morning, everyone. I think everybody has spoken. The people at the prison, and I think that of course, when a person gets out of prison, you know, they need a support staff. I think the fact that Mr. Hernley and that Mr. Wilkinson are there for him is very important, because other people, family members who haven't been in the criminal justice system may want to help, but they may not know everything that's necessary for a person who comes out of prison to be successful. I think that Mr. Hernley's program and his support from Mr. Wilkinson will be important. I feel like the board can effectuate a release plan with substance abuse continuing, that would help ensure that he would be successful, and we'd ask that you would grant his parole today.
All right, thank you. Thank you. All right, Mr. Jones, I think we are prepared to vote. I'll be voting first. Shaq, right?
Yes, ma'am.
Look, I heard everything Warren Gayran said about you, and it was very impressive. My vote today is going to be to grant you parole to the parole project, that transition plan, and your eventual long-term plan to your brother's house.
Yes, ma'am.
And that's based on the work that you've done, the things that Warden Gayran said about you, with special conditions that you do attend AA meetings 3 times a week for at least 6 months,
Okay.
and then as needed.
Yes, ma'am.
That you report, you've been in jail a long time, so report to your parole officer weekly for the first 6 months,
Yes,
and then
ma'am.
you'll have a curfew from 10 p.m. to 6 a.m. And just one vote. But that's my vote. So, Mr. Marabella?
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Mr. Jones, my vote is going to be the same. You've done very well while you've been in prison. You've got some excellent comments by the warden. I think you do understand the significance of the issues that face you when you get out, and I think that you're going to have a very good plan. I think that the parole project is excellent. They always do excellent work, and they've accepted you in as a client. And my vote would likewise be the same. And I'd like to say to Ms. Ray, it's good seeing you. I miss seeing all my friends a lot. So good seeing you, Ms. Ray.
Thank you.
Ms. Wise?
Mr. Jones, when I read your record, you know, you've been in this stuff ever since you were juvenile.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, you uncored you weren't cooperating with your mother, and I'm sorry to hear that she's gone. But I just want to commend you on who you are today. My vote is to grant as well for the reasons I already stated, and I concur with the recommendations on the record. Best wishes.
Thank
All
you.
right, you've been granted parole. Good luck to you, sir.
Thank you, ma'am.
Well, what do you think? You think he had a good interview? Do you think he's doing well? Mr. Mirabella made a very rare pass. I mean, when he come out and straight up said it's not an addiction, it's a habit. What do you think? Well, I'll share with you now.
At 6 o'clock, we've learned a lot in the last 24 hours about what happened in that deadly confrontation between a wanted felon and law enforcement. One question remains tonight: exactly who shot and killed 51-year-old David Jones in a neighborhood near Baker yesterday. State police say a U.S. Marshal task force was trying to arrest him when he started shooting. Katie Easter is in the newsroom. Katie, why were they after him?
David Jones was facing 4 different felony charges, including home invasion and domestic abuse while endangering a child. But this wasn't the first time Jones was in trouble with the police. In this quiet countryside neighborhood, a black car abandoned with numerous evidence markers placed around it. State police say it's where 51-year-old David Jones got out and started to shoot at members of a U.S. Marshals task force as they tried to arrest him.
We have small issues that happen, but nothing to this extreme.
The gunshots, a complete surprise to neighbors. Several members of that task force returned fire after he ran to the next street. State police, which is investigating the shooting, said the task force saw Jones driving and tried to stop him, but he crashed his car into one of the officers' cars. Jones was wanted for a home invasion that happened last Friday. According to court documents, Jones forced himself into the home of a woman he knows, breaking her door frame. He then pulled out a gun and hit the woman in the back of the head while her 3 children watched. The woman knocked the gun out of Jones' hand, which caused it to discharge. No one was injured by gunfire, but the woman was taken to the hospital for wounds she suffered during the invasion. Jones was wanted on 4 felony charges, including domestic abuse, battery with child endangerment, home invasion, aggravated battery, and possession of a firearm. Court papers say he was on parole until 2054. That after he pled guilty to 4 counts of first-degree robbery and armed robbery in 1997. He was sentenced to 25 years. It is unclear when Jones was released or why. As part of his parole, Jones was also not supposed to have a gun.
Did also hear them say, whatever the guy's name was, please put the gun down, we can help you. I guess he resisted and didn't want to do that, and that's when he was taken down.
Well, there you have it. They said, we don't know why he was paroled or how he was paroled, but he was paroled through Act 122, which was legislation that was passed by the Parole Project. He was there laughing along with everyone else. I shouldn't say it was passed by them, it was lobbied through them to legislation, because what it did, and many of you have heard this before, but it basically funneled funds. Instead of going to the prisons, it goes to these non-for-profit organizations like the Parole Project that are getting millions and millions and millions, I should say tens of millions of dollars from Louisiana to house these inmates once they're paroled. Now, he did serve a lot of time. You know, he never ended up taking a life. These were first degree. But what was interesting about this case to me was it had some very unique outliers. And one is that he was initially granted a commutation. So we've seen those commutation hearings where it's a panel of at least 4, often 5 board members. They make a recommendation to the governor. They were going to commute his sentence because he had such a long sentence. And the governor denied it. And I don't know how many cases the governor has denied, really. I mean, it's the same. This governor, as far as I understood, is it's just shocking to me. But I don't know. Maybe, isn't that something? Isn't that something that the governor can go to sleep feeling, wow, I denied him, but this new legislation that was passed, I don't think that's the governor's fault. It's like I made the right choice by denying him, by denying the recommendation of the parole board. But he ends up getting paroled anyways from this new legislation, and then he goes basically just right back at it. And with the firearm, with hurting people, with it was going nowhere quick. He obviously had no intentions of going back to prison, what would have been for life. And it's normally Mr. Marabella and the parole board in general, I think, would have denied anyone who gets up to the board and says that the whole reason for robbing was their addiction, but they get up to the board and they have what seems no preparation to the point where you're actually saying that it was a habit. And that's dangerous because, I mean, that is why he's in prison to begin with, was his addiction. And they threw all their protocols aside because this was in the bag. This was a predetermined hearing. It was Act 122. They had pressure to release those inmates. They had the parole board there that had it approved. The reason why they need to release these inmates, you want to hear why Act 122 was passed? Louisiana looked and they said, we have way too high of a per capita incarceration rate. We need to find ways to improve the data. Just read between the lines. How do you improve the data? Well, let's pass legislation that allows anyone who is above the age of 45 and has served at least 20 years of their sentence and hasn't committed certain crimes is now eligible. And that's what he falls under. And they signed it into place, and now inmates are moved. But now you can say, well, what drives this legislation? Like, do they really only care about the data? And then you can take a step back and let's just follow the money. And some of you have heard me say this already, but it's that many of the prisons like Angola in Louisiana are publicly traded. It's not under this stock ticker, Louisiana State Penitentiary. It's like a conglomerate that owns many prisons. So you can buy stock in these prisons. Now, the problem that these prisons have, these publicly traded companies, I should say, is that they used to be a lot more profitable. And they were a lot more profitable because 20 years ago, 10 years ago, their inmates were much younger. They're much cheaper because they don't have expensive medical bills. Now, all of a sudden, as they age, as their prisons fill with men and women who are getting older and older, remember, they're locked up for life because they sold pot. Let's keep that in mind, too, many of them, or they just had possession of narcotics, many of them. Well, now they're becoming expensive. Their profits are dwindling. They need to find a way to get rid of these inmates. That's it. That's it. Now, they can't do it directly, so they lobby for certain organizations like the Parole Project, and the Parole Project makes legislation which helps funnel money towards them. I mean, it's simply money getting moved from one. The government's still paying it. The taxpayer is still paying it, but it's going from one pocket to another. It's increasing the wealth I don't need to get into, but that's what's happening here, and in this case, the result was horrific, and it could have been a lot worse, frankly. But remember, it's a rippling effect. It's a rippling effect. He broke down the door of a woman, hit her in the head, with her children watching, goes on a chase. The troopers who now have that to live with that they had to take his, it's just it's an ever going, and all of this was driven for the dollar. Now, I do think there's some good intention. This does help people who are deserving to get out of prison, but it's interesting to think that very rarely do we see people getting let out on Act 122 that we feel really good about. Isn't that interesting? Let that sink in. Richard, thank you for the information. And with that, I'll let you go.